Good evening. My name is Juanita Senkis. I am CHIP's president. I would like to welcome you to our annual CHIP meeting on a lovely night tonight. But before we get started, I would like to introduce you to Alicia Pardon to open with a prayer.
God of hope, in these times of change, unite our nation and guide our leaders with your wisdom. Give us courage to overcome our fears and help us to build a future in which we may all prosper and share through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. When we start tonight, I'd like to introduce Mike Fidel, will be one of our moderators, and Alicia Pardon will be our second moderator tonight. Normally we have a student here, but because of the situation with COVID, we did not invite a student tonight. I think we're going to start with our first issue, issue 17. It's a renewal levy for Lorain City School District, and Dr. Jeff Graham, our CEO, superintendent, will speak.
Thanks, Juanita. Again, my name is Jeff Graham, and I'm the superintendent of the Lorain City Schools. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about issue 17, which is a renewal levy for the schools. And what a renewal means is that it's a levy. Actually, this is a group of levies combined that our voters have supported many, many times in the past. It will not result in any new tax dollars to the district. Excuse me. But before I go on to that, what I'd like to do is just thank the community of the Lorain City Schools. As we all know, we're going through some truly awful times as a nation. We're smack dab in the middle of a pandemic, the racial tension that exists, the economy's in horrible shape, unemployment rates through the roof, and the people of Lorain have responded to these crises in a manner that's consistent with the way they always have, with love and grace, and to make sure that their neighbors are taken care of, to make sure, and again, specifically as it relates to the schools, the people have been amazing, truly supportive, making sure that our children eat, that they're safe, that those who need mental health supports have those to them. And it's a place that I bought a house here a couple months ago, and it's a place that my family and I are truly proud to call home. That said, we do know that some folks are still hurting out there, and if there's anything you need, please call us. Our hotline is 440-830-4357. Again, that's 440-830-4357. Y para nuestra familias de habla España, I'm working on that. 440-830-4088. Otra vez, 440-830-4088. And again, if there are services that you need that we don't provide, we'll get you in touch with the right people to make sure that your needs are met. Now, back to the levy. Again, it's not a tax increase. It's a renewal levy that our voters have supported many times in the past. And the purpose of these funds, and actually for us, it's $10 million, which is enormous, is for the operations of the schools. It's for making sure that the programs exist to provide the services that our children need. And I know that you've been hearing this now for 5 or 6 years, that these are critical times and pivotal times, and you've heard it because they are. And I also know that you have concerns about the schools. And I can promise you that the people in our district, just like the people in our community, truly care about one another. And more importantly, they truly care about the children and the families they serve. We're going to be okay. But without this levy, it'll be devastating. It'll cripple us. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but we would lose hundreds of positions in our district that are necessary to meet the needs of our students. So again, issue 17 is not a tax increase. It's a renewal that's been supported many, many times in the past by our voters, and we look forward to continued support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Our next issue, issue 18, is an additional levy for Lorain County JVS and Dr. Glenn Faircloth, Superintendent Lorain County Joint Vocational School.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Faircloth, Superintendent of Lorain County Joint Vocational School District. Issue 18 Issue 18 is a permanent improvement levy for 10 years. For a mere $23 and some change per $100,000 home is what we're asking per year for 10 years. The Joint Vocational School District has been a part of Lorain County since 1971. In its infancy stage, we were part of 9 schools, and now we're part of 13 school districts. We are an extension of that community. Nearly these 50 years, the JVS has produced hundreds and hundreds of young men and women who have went out into Lorain County and changed the world. They're part of our community. They're law-abiding citizens. They're taxpayers. They're homeowners. They're business owners. And most importantly, they have added to our workforce. Lorain County JVS belongs to this county. We have an obligation to support her. In 50 years, we have not had much major improvement. We're a facility that we sit with very little fire suppressant system, sprinkler system. We don't even have. We are called upon to train the future workforce for our county. And we answer those calls. But without improvement, we simply are a dated facility. So we are simply asking for this November for your help. We need to protect and preserve our Joint Vocational School District. It belongs to this county. We have an obligation to. So for a mere $23 and some change for per $100,000 home, for 10 years, that's it. We simply ask, is it worth that return on investment? I ask and challenge any of our listeners to find someone who has not been touched by the JVS, either a repair person or a family member. I challenge anyone to ask, is it not worth it? Issue 18 is simply a must. So for nearly almost $2 a month, a little over $23 a year per $100,000 for 10 years on an improvement, permanent improvement, we simply ask. That money is not for salaries. No one's getting pay raises of sort off a permanent improvement levy. It's simply for repairs, updates, and for safety features for our facility. Your JVS needs you. Please support issue 18. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn Faircloth. Our next levy is issue 24. It's a renewal levy to the Lorain County Children's Services. And here to speak on that is Kristen Fox-Berkey, the Executive Director. Welcome.
Hello, I am Kristen Fox-Berkey, the Executive Director for Lorain County Children's Services. Please vote yes on issue 24, the Children's Services Levy. This is not a new tax and will help support services to our community's abused and neglected children, including services to parents, foster parents, kinship parents, and adoptive parents. This is a renewal and not a new tax. The need for services to abused and neglected children remains critical to our community. Last year, our agency received 4,525 referrals of suspected abuse or neglect of children. This comes out to a referral every 2.5 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As first responders to emergency situations involving child abuse and neglect, our staff is available around the clock. The levy provides for over half of our $21 million budget. As you are aware, a renewal levy does not increase taxes. This levy would cost a $100,000 homeowner $49.84 per year, or less than 14 cents per day. Taxpayers' continued investment in services to Lorain County's abused and neglected children have funded and will continue to fund improved services to affected families, creating a stronger Lorain County for all. A portion of the money that is collected from this levy also provides Lorain County's contribution toward Ohio's Bureau for Children with Medical Handicaps. With this renewal, Lorain County Children's Services will not only meet the needs of our community's abused and neglected children, but expand critical services to enhance our ability to help children be safe and grow up in a stable, permanent family who can provide for their long-term well-being. Some examples of services that we have been able to improve due to our levy include use of the Ohio START protocol for specialized services to families who are affected by substance abuse and children's services. We've been able to increase the structured support of grandparents taking care of their grandchildren and other kinship families by creating a team of specialized caseworkers who can provide ongoing support to these families, just as we have always provided ongoing support to our foster families. We've been able to increase the number of foster families. Last year, the number of newly licensed foster families outnumbered the number who closed. And we've been able to establish a modest subsidy for kinship families. This is to assist them in their ability to provide for the children that they have so lovingly agreed to care for. Lorain County Children's Services takes its responsibility to the community and to the clients seriously. The agency is nationally accredited through the Council on Accreditation for Services to Families and Children and is regularly reviewed for compliance with best practice standards. Protecting children from abuse and neglect is a team effort, and we appreciate being on your team. Vote yes on the Children's Services Levy and help keep our children safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Our last issue is issue 25, framing a charter, and that will be brought by our mayor, Jack Bradley.
Hello, I'm Jack Bradley, and I plan on voting for all three of the issues that were just talked about. The issue of the charter is an interesting issue. I've had an interesting year so far as being the mayor of Lorain. But I think the first question that people need to have answered is, how did this all happen? And basically, a committee was formed, and there were three people on the committee. There was a young lady from South Amherst, a lawyer from Avon Lake, and a former Lorain city councilman who formed the committee. And they went out and they obtained signatures on petitions. And they had to obtain signatures from 10% of the people who voted in the last election. And if they were successful in getting the proper number of signatures, then this particular issue did get on the ballot. So that's how it happened. The second question is, shall a commission, or the question that they put on the ballot is, shall a commission be chosen to frame a charter? That's the issue that the voters have to answer, either yes or no. There's going to be two issues to decide. That first issue is a yes or no question. Even if you vote no on wanting to form a charter commission, you can still vote for 1 up to 15 members to be on that charter commission. So remember, you have two things you have to vote on. First of all, whether there should be a charter commission formed. Second of all, you have to vote for 1 up to 15 members of that charter commission. Now, what is a charter? A charter is a legal document that's like a constitution. It's a framework for municipal government. Think of it as a statement of fundamentals for your city. Like a good constitution, it doesn't cover all issues specifically. The Ohio Constitution, under Article 18, Section 3, provides municipalities with the power of local self-government. So you can think of a charter as local self-government. The citizens will be providing for the distribution of municipal powers as they see fit, rather than relying upon the General Assembly, which is what a statutory form of government is. So instead of having a statutory form of government where the General Assembly sets the rules, the local charter sets the rules for the government. Now, I ask the question, why a charter? Well, number one, the citizens get to decide the structure of the city's government, not the General Assembly. Many city charters take the statutory procedure and install them as part of a charter. And the charter can be reviewed and changed every 5 to 10 years if the charter so provides. Now, who is going to make the final call on the charter? Well, within 1 year, if a charter commission is formed, it has to be put before the voters of the city. And then the voters will decide whether they want to accept or reject the proposed charter. Now, there's basically 4 types of charters, which I'm not going to be able to explain to you tonight because of time limitations, but there's a strong mayor-council form of charter, there's a weak mayor form, council form of charter, there's a city manager form of charter, and then there's also a commission plan of charter. That's going to be up to the Charter Commission if they decide they want to go through with the Charter Commission to decide what kind of charter they want. So that's what you're going to be faced with when you go to vote, and hopefully the decision is yours, and you're going to make a decision based upon some research and some knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, the race here is the 55th District State Representative, Gail Manning, Zach Stepp.
Okay, we'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the CHIP Candidates Forum. We do this twice annually. And the purpose of what we do is so that the community can see who is running for office, who is representing us. We don't need controversy. What we need is to know who our people are. I'm sure if you're voting, you will do your own research, but today you're going to get a chance to hear from 2 individuals who want the position of 55th District State Representative. The first individual is Gail Manning. Gail Manning is the current district representative, and she has been challenged by Mr. Zach Stepp, who is a government consultant who now wants to work on behalf of us within the government. So we'd like to invite you both, thank you both for coming, and we're going to begin with opening statements, and we'd like to start with Ms. Manning.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I am a Lorain County resident my entire life, graduated from Brookside High School, then went on to Kent State University and University of Akron to get my master's. Both degrees were in education, and then married my high school sweetheart. We moved back to North Richville, and where I've lived for over 45 years, and been happy to do that. Teacher for 37 years, taught young kids. Both my kids, my own children, went to North Ridgeville City Schools. And while in Ridgeville, I worked on Planning Commission. I was appointed to Planning Commission, served on City Council, and also have been an instructor at LCC. I have served 2 terms in the Senate. While in the Senate, I was Vice Chair of Finance. I was also Chair of Transportation Budget, and had the opportunity to also serve in leadership as Majority Whip. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stepp, your opening statement.
Thank you, sir. And first, just want to thank you for having us here, and thank you, Rep. Manning, for joining us in the conversation. My name is Zach Stepp. I am running to be the state representative for District 55. I grew up in Sheffield Village. I live in Avon Lake now. As the moderator said, I work in the federal government as a contractor, working in data analytics and helping make government work better for the taxpayer. And I decided to move back home and run for this seat because I think we need to get more young people in elected office. And I think for far too long, Lorain County, I think, has been left behind as politicians for many years have made promises that good paying jobs would be coming back to this area. I look at where Ohio is relative to the rest of the country. The fact is that we're the 6th most moved from state in the country. for young skilled workers, right? I want to reverse that. I want to focus on making sure that we are a destination for employers once again, making sure that we retain more of our young people here, and that's going to be what it needs to take if we want to see a Lorain County comeback. And I think it's long overdue that we have more young people in with fresh perspective, fresh ideas that can do more to make a priority for communities like Lorain County. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We're going to begin with some questions now, and I'm going to begin with the first question with Mr. Stepp. Right now, no one seems to know what's happening in Washington as to whether we're going to move ahead with a new stimulus package or not, or what the end result is going to be. But I think our voters would like to know, do you support the inclusion of $120 billion in additional unemployment assistance included in a COVID assistance package proposed by a bipartisan group of lawmakers known as the Problem Solvers Caucus? And if so, why or why not?
Well, I think it starts with the premise that I believe is that we got to be taking care of folks that have been displaced by this virus. To no fault of their own, they lost their jobs. And we want to make sure that they're able to still support their family through this crisis and not have to forego meals or not have to forego medical care. And that needs to be our main focus. So in principle, I support it. What I don't support is having federal dollars come in where people are going to be making more money today than they were making before the pandemic. So as the federal government, they don't have all the data that they need to make sure that they are actually targeting those dollars in a smart way such that people are making about the same amount of money that they were before the pandemic. That was the ultimate goal. Unfortunately, people make widely different amounts of money for their cost of living in New York versus Ohio, right? So I would like to see more data, being able to be used in order to allocate those dollars more effectively and making sure that as many people as possible are making about the same amount of money that they were before.
Thank you. Ms. Manning, same question?
Thank you very much. This is a federal issue, and as we well know, and so, when a lot of times when these dollars come back, you don't know exactly where they're going or what issues they're going to have with them. A lot of times these dollars that come back are tied to something else. We don't want to make decisions on something that we're not aware of. Naturally, we want to be able to help people that are unemployed, but we also want to make sure that we get people back to work as quickly as we can in good paying jobs. And I know that when I've been around the district and talking to different people in the district, especially businesses, they're constantly telling me that they need people back to work. But you want to make sure that people feel safe when they get back to work. And so, we'd have to look at this in more detail, not knowing exactly what would be coming down the pike.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. And your next question will come from Alicia Pardon.
Okay, starting with you, Ms. Manning. What is your position on separating children from families caught entering this country illegally? Again,
that's another federal issue. But being a mom and a grandmother, I certainly think that we should always keep family members together. I just feel very uncomfortable to think that young children would be separated from their parents in a different situation like that. But again, it's a federal issue, so I'm not really familiar exactly what happened. All I do is see what's on the news.
Thank you. Same question for you, Mr. Stepp.
I'm sorry, but this isn't a federal issue. This is a moral issue, and this is something that every single elected official in this room and around the country needs to stand up and say that this is not who we are as a country, right? Separating babies from their parents at the border, that is not who we are as a country. That is not the country that I want to live in, and I would use my platform as your state rep to make sure that I make that known, and I'm not afraid of my base and my party in making sure that I'm willing to stand up for what's right, and I will do that as the next state rep for this district.
Okay, next question, and we'll begin with Mr. Stepp. Recent deaths of citizens during police encounters are igniting protests and calls for reform across the country, primarily aimed at preventing discrimination against people of color. How important do you see this as an issue in Ohio? What do you feel should be done to improve policing and police accountability throughout Ohio?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a very important question. I'm glad that it was on the list when I got the list. And I think it's very important that we're talking about this, but first acknowledging that police officers have some of the toughest jobs in public service. As I've been meeting with folks around the district, I've made a point to reach out to our law enforcement and hearing their perspective, you know, when we're talking about different reforms. Certainly do not support anyone in my party that is talking about defunding police. You know, the fact is that the Republicans in Columbus have been the ones that have been defunding police and cutting the local government funds over the last 10 years. With that being said, people have a reason to be upset. You know, when Tamir Rice was killed in Cleveland not that many years ago, Governor Kasich at the time put together a list of recommendations for what we can be doing to actually preventing another tragedy, like a kid getting gunned down in a park. Right? And how many of those recommendations actually became law? Not a single one. That entire report got shelved with no action from the legislature. So you wonder why, folks, when we see it happening again, we see more kids dying. You wonder why they're upset? That's why.
Thank you. Oh, Ms. Manning, same question? Sorry.
I was wondering. Thank you. I've been supported by the FOP. I certainly support the men and women in blue. I think they have a very difficult job to do. You know, I've had the opportunity to ride along with the sheriffs and the state troopers. So, you know, I've had an opportunity to talk to them. And, you know, naturally, they would, you know, just like any other profession, we have people in those professions that we're not happy with. And we should take action against those people. We have increased the local government funds in this last GA, and hoping that those local government funds do go for more training for the police officers. We've done a lot more for training. We also need to make sure that we're getting into the classrooms to recruit people of color to make sure that they want to go into these types of professions. I think we need more minorities in these professions, and I know when I've talked to many of the municipalities, they're telling me that they can't find people to go into those fields.
Thank you. You will both have 1 minute for a closing statement. Ms. Manning, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Chip, for having us today. I really appreciate that. During difficult times like this with the pandemic, the downturn of the economy, we need someone with experience and leadership to see through with this. I have a background of bipartisan support. Any bills that I've always passed have always been passed with bipartisan support. I make sound judgments in my no vote for householder, for speaker, and for House Bill 6, I voted no on it 2 times. So it shows that I have good judgment. I've been endorsed by labor and business professionals, the FOP and Firemen's Association, medical groups, all the educational associations, OEA, OFT, the BATS, the Ohio Environmental Council, the Plain Dealer, and the Chronicle. And in the Chronicle it says, she's exactly the sort of politician people claim they want in office. Voters in the 55th House District are lucky to have her and should back her for another 2-year term. I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Stepp?
Thank you, and thank you again for having us here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to address the folks watching this at home. I believe that we need change. You know, I think for 10 years I've seen Ohio moving in the wrong direction and it disproportionately affecting places in Lorain County. You know, I've laid out very detailed plans for how I want to fight for a Lorain County comeback. Every single week the last 6 months I've written about a different policy issue that I think will make your life better. And I encourage you to check me out at my website, zachsteppforohio.com, and see how some of those policies could make your life a little bit easier. And I would also like to point out that we need more young voices, right? We need more young perspectives that are going to actually represent all of us. And I would like to draw a distinction for myself, who I also consider myself as a moderate, distinguishing between a moderate that doesn't like to rock the boat, right, that doesn't take hard, tough stances, and being a moderate that has big, bold ideas that both parties can get on board with and actually deliver on those results. I think we've had 10 years. I want to see more. I'm fighting for a Lorain County comeback. I hope you'll vote for me, and I hope you join our team at home. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
And thank you both for just your willingness to serve in such a rough time for this country. There was a third candidate, Dale Stein, but he did not respond to our invitation. Thank you very much, and we'll be right back with the race for the judge for 9th District Court of Appeals.
Every year, the Salvation Army serves nearly 30 million people in need. That's one person every second. So by the time you've finished watching this, 30 more lives will have been changed for good. All thanks to your donations.
Thank you.
Okay, our next race is Judge 9th District Court of Appeals, Julie Schaefer and Betty Sutton.
We'd like to welcome both of you. You will each get an opening statement, and Judge Schaefer, will start with you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight and speak to your constituents out here in Lorain County. I am Judge Julie Schaefer, the 9th District Court of Appeals. I have served in this capacity for nearly 6 years, having previously served as judge of Akron Municipal Court. I have nearly 18 years of relevant daily legal experience in exactly the kinds of cases we hear in our court. Having experienced trying cases in court matters, our job as appellate judges is to judge what trial court judges do, address the issues raised by the attorneys, to evaluate whether the trial court applied the proper law correctly. We call balls and strikes. We don't make the rules. We don't pick the teams. We don't pick the equipment. All we do is make sure that the laws are being applied properly in the lower courts. Having been a judge in the trial court matters when it comes to the Court of Appeals, because the Supreme Court only hears 100 to 130 cases a year. Our courts of appeals are truly the last of resort for most folks. That's why experience matters in this race. My private practice as an attorney focused on domestic relations issues, divorce, dissolution, child custody disputes. I was a foster parent for 15 years, fostering over 30 children and adopting 3. I've represented clients in general civil litigation, as well as municipal court and common pleas courts, and I've heard criminal cases as a trial court judge. In short, I have extensive relevant legal courtroom experience that's vitally necessary, and I respectfully ask for your support this election season.
Thank you. Congresswoman Sutton, you'll get your opening statement.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be back with you again. I'm here because experience matters, and my legal experience is comprehensive, broad, and deep, and I want to take it to the bench to work for the people of Lorain County in the 9th District. The work I've done in law and service has given me unique insight into the law. As an attorney for nearly 30 years, I have experience working in both civil and criminal cases. I have represented people right here in Lorain, people who keep us safe and healthy and help to educate our kids. I'm proud of that work, but I also have experience that transcends traditional legal experience. I have served this community as your congresswoman in the past and also worked in the Ohio House of Representatives. And there, I learned to write the laws. I conducted hearings. I interpreted the law, things that an appeals court judge does every day. I have seen the law from every side of the equation, and I believe that comprehensive, that deep, that broad experience, bringing that to a panel of judges that will hear those cases will prove to serve Lorain County well.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and begin with the first question, and we're going to begin with you, Congresswoman Sutton. Both of you have served in public office, Ms. Schaefer as a judge and Board of Education member, and Ms. Sutton as an Ohio and United States representative. So you've gone through a lot, and you've seen even more. Would you please describe the most challenging ethical dilemma you have encountered and how you may have dealt with it?
Well, there are often ethical challenges that come up along the way. I'll pick this one. When I was a state representative, I was invited to a conference that when I got there, I realized that it might have been underwritten by a pharmaceutical company, because it all of a sudden turned to the subject of osteoporosis, and I realized that this pharmaceutical company was the only one who made the drug that fought osteoporosis. at that time. So what I did was I needed to deal with that in the moment. So I confronted those folks who had invited me to that conference. I walked out of the conference and I paid my way home. I think it cost me about $1,000. And the paper reported on it and said, paying the price to stay legal. That is who I am. I have never hesitated to stand up to people in my party or another to do the right thing.
Thank you. Judge Schaefer, please describe the most challenging ethical dilemma you have encountered and how you dealt with it.
Well, that's an interesting question because honestly, I can't recall an ethical dilemma that I've ever had. If anything that's ever come up that required a judgment call, it wasn't anything that I had to angst over or had to gnash my teeth over. Things are pretty clear to me what's acceptable and what's not. I haven't had any issues really with what's an ethical dilemma, ethics that other people have encountered that I have had to deal with. That may be on the school board. There were a number of ethical dilemmas that I had to deal with that had nothing to do with me, but that were other people's ethics that were challenging that we had to deal with as school board members. And those things happen, you know, when you have issues, again, with student parents or teachers who are supervising students and the quality and the level of the supervision that's going on. Sometimes there's ethical things that need to be dealt with there, but that's in the realm of other people and their performance and their jobs that we had to deal with as professional board members. So personally, I can't think of any ethical dilemmas that I've had to encounter that required me to make any judgment calls. It's pretty simple for me, what's right and what's not. I don't have an issue with that. So dealing with those as a professional, though, is
Thank you.
Okay, starting with your second question with you, Judge Schaefer. What is the most significant challenge facing the court for which you are seeking election, and how do you feel that challenge is best addressed?
Well, I guess really things are pretty stable on the Court of Appeals right now. I mean, to me, the biggest challenge that we may face would have to do with COVID. The Supreme Court told filing deadlines back in April, and they were reinstated at the end of July. So trial courts were not hearing trials because people were not allowed in the courts. And now that they've got all the protective equipment that they need in the courtrooms, they're finally able to start having trials again at the trial court level. So that's only happened in the last couple of weeks. So I anticipate that toward the end of this year, beginning of next year, summertime, we're going to be hit with the glut of appeals that come from the trial court level. So I think in the interest of stability, the challenge we're going to have is making sure that these cases are heard properly, quickly, and we face them honestly the way that they come before the court, because there may be an issue with the glut of cases that we're going to have to face pretty soon. So I think stability in the court and maintaining the constancy that we've had is important.
Thank you. Same question, Congresswoman Sutton.
I think there are a number of challenges. The Court of Appeals plays an extremely important role in ensuring justice for people in the 9th District, including right here in Lorain. And I think increasing the public's trust of the judiciary is something that we should always all be concerned about. There isn't a judge from Lorain sitting on the 9th District Court of Appeals, and it's a panel of 5 judges. I do have a relationship with this community, have had the great honor to serve Lorain in the United States Congress, and also to represent hardworking people from this community as an attorney. So I would work to increase the trust in the judiciary and make sure that the people in Lorain feel like they have a judge who understands their community and cares about making sure that justice is delivered for all of the 9th District, including Lorain. So increasing access to justice is always going to be a goal of mine as a judge.
Thank you. Now for your final question, and I will begin with Congresswoman Sutton. What elements in your training, background, and experience have prepared you to deal with questions of legal rights for minorities and women?
Well, the list is long. As an attorney, I have represented women and minorities who have been discriminated against in the workplace successfully on their behalf. As a member of the Ohio House of Representatives, I have legislated written laws to protect minorities in housing. As a member of Congress, I helped spearhead the passage of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, and also, of course, always stood up for equal justice under the law. As a member of President Obama's administration, I led the St. Lawrence Seaway Development Corporation, and there too, I wrote policies to ensure that people would be treated fairly on the job. So my whole career has been a path that is steeped in protecting the rights of minority and women, and so that's what I would bring to the job.
Thank you. Judge Schaefer, same question?
Well, I guess elements of my training, background, and experience that have prepared me to deal with questions of legal rights for minorities and women. Well, having been a single mom for 37 years, I understand the rough aspects of being a single parent and trying to raise children in a family by yourself. I was a small business owner before I became a lawyer, and believe it or not, women are not minorities when it comes to businesses. So I've been discriminated against myself as a woman business owner. Those sorts of things don't have really much to do with what goes on in our court, though. Our court is designed to be fair and to address the issues that are brought to us by the trial courts. So even though I may have experience with those sorts of things, those don't come to my mind when I address cases that come to me. I'm looking at what is brought to me with a fair and open mind, and I look at those things as the way the attorneys bring them to me and as what was determined by the trial court. So we are a court that calls balls and strikes. We don't make the rules, and policy issues such as the rights of women and minorities are best dealt with in the legislature, and we are just to apply the rules as they are drafted by the legislature, and that's what I do every day.
Thank you. Before we go to the closing statement, we'd actually like to ask one more question. I'm going to, Ali, ask you both that question.
Yes, and we'll start with you, Judge Schaefer. Which Supreme Court justice most closely represents your judicial philosophy, and why?
Well, I guess when I read that, I thought, well, Clarence Thomas, he's quiet and he sits back and he listens and he does his research, and I like that aspect of his personality. But yesterday morning, I was doing the interview with the Elyria Chronicle, and I was answering the questions that he said, and then when I got done answering, I went to turn on the radio, and I'm listening to Amy Coney Barrett answer questions to the panel that she's being questioned. I thought, you know, I just said that same thing to the gentleman that was interviewing me for the Lorain, the Elyria Chronicle, and I thought, well, you know, I guess she's not a Supreme Court justice yet, but the idea that judicial restraint, not judicial activism, we don't change the laws, we don't make the laws. Our job is to apply the laws, to remain impartial and to be neutral and to address the issues that they come before the court as they come before the court. Be fair, be honest, be neutral, and look at these things. I don't make the laws, and I think that's what she said as well, is it's your job to make the laws. It's not mine. It's the legislature's job. It's executive branches to enforce them, and my job is simply to interpret them and make sure that being applied the way that they were designed. So that, I would have to say, in the end, it's going to end up looking a lot like what she said.
Thank you. Okay, Congresswoman Sutton, same question?
I guess we're talking about the U.S. Supreme Court. So I will say Justice Sonia Sotomayor, because her opinions are thoughtful and well-reasoned, well-written. And I'm going to add just one other thing. I am going to bring in a former justice from the Ohio Supreme Court by the name of Florence Ellen Wood Allen, who was also an amazing justice. And I bring her up because she became the first woman to sit on a court of last resort in any state, and she came out of just down the road in Cuyahoga County. The year after suffrage was passed, she actually became a common pleas judge in Cuyahoga County, and she was a woman of tremendous independence, in fact, rejecting the support of both the Democratic and the Republican Party when she sought re-election to the Ohio Supreme Court. I pick her up and I bring her to the attention of the audience because I think the fierce independence of the judiciary is critically important to our democracy, and she was a great role model for that.
Thank you. Now you will both get 1 minute for closing remarks. Congresswoman Sutton, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am running for judge because, like you, I come from a hardworking family and know we all deserve fair treatment. That's why, as an attorney, I fought for safety forces and nurses and teachers, Ohio workers, and families seeking justice. It's why in the State House and in Congress, I wrote laws to protect children and families, and it's why, as a judge, I'll dedicate every day to fair, equal justice under the law. I humbly ask for your vote. I would be honored to have it. I appreciate the Lorain community. I have had the honor to serve you in other aspects of the law and our democracy, and I would be greatly humbled if you would give me the opportunity to take all that I have learned, seeing the law from all sides of the equation, and do a good job for you as your next 9th District Court of Appeals judge.
Thank you, Judge Schaefer. Your 1 minute.
Sorry.
That's okay. I am currently the judge of the 9th District Court of Appeals, and I have nearly 6 years of real-life daily experience doing the actual job, reading the briefs, doing the research, delving into the case file, hearing the oral arguments, conferencing with the other judges on the panel, and reviewing the drafts of the over 1,000 cases I've heard, and being the author judge of over 450 opinions. I know how the system works because I've been doing it. I've practiced relevant daily law now for nearly 18 years. I have said that appellate court judges judge other judges, and that's exactly what we do. When we reverse a case, it lands right back on the trial court bench. So having that first-hand knowledge of how trial courts operate is extremely helpful and necessary in the appellate court. As a seasoned appellate attorney said, lawyers count on our appellate judges to have a solid understanding of the law, a strong grasp of legal analysis, and a thorough understanding of legal procedures. These attorneys need judges with the ability to apply the law based on experience, practice, and legal acumen. Voters should vote for me because I performed excellently and earned the honor of being reelected. I have been your judge for the past 6 years, and I've proven that I have the necessary experience, practice, wisdom, and legal acumen to ensure the integrity of our legal system. For over 20 years, you've trusted me to protect your money, your schools, your children, and your rights. You're still safer with Schaefer, and I humbly ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you both for being here tonight and for your service to our communities.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to have the 9th Congressional District. However, we wanted to make you aware that last night, I believe it was last night, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur's brother passed at the Cleveland Clinic. And also, we also received a message from Ron Weber that something had happened in his family and he would not be able to attend this evening. So when we come back, there is still a candidate that was able to make it, and we're going to present him to you as soon as we come back. Thank you so much.
Ohio State is saving lives every day.
This is Ohio State.
We're the economic engine of the state. A major employer.
Over 60,000 students. We're on the forefront of cancer research. An educational core of Ohio.
Impacting tens of thousands daily.
Our alumni organization is nearly 500,000 worldwide.
This is Ohio State.
This is Ohio State.
Ohio State.
This is the Ohio State University.
Okay. Welcome back. We're now going to talk a little bit to a candidate for the 9th District Congress who is running against Marcy Kaptur, the sitting Congresswoman, and Rob Weber, the Republican challenger. So please welcome Mr. Mackenzie Lewandowski. Do I have that correct, sir?
Yes, that's correct.
Lewandowski, who is a write-in candidate, and I want him to start with his opening statement, then I want to follow up, and we want to sort of educate the community on what a write-in candidate is and what it means to you. So, Mr. Lewandowski, if you would start with your opening statement, please.
Sure. Good day. Good night. My name is Mackenzie Lewandowski, or I'm also known as Mackenzie Levy or Mac Levy. So I was here 2 years ago, also running for the same position, giving you guys an opportunity to elect me into a position where I could help you in a way that other elected officials might not be able to. So I'm giving you guys the opportunity again to do that. Had you elected me 2 years ago, I might have been able to protect you from some of the things that have happened over the last 2 years. And I have a feeling there are some more tough times ahead, and so I am once again giving you guys the opportunity to put me in a position to protect you from some of these things that might harm our communities.
Oh, okay, so I'll go ahead and begin with the first question. Oh, he's going to say.
Oh, okay. I can do the first question.
Good, go.
Okay, Mr. Lewandowski, your first question is, please explain why you decided to run as a write-in candidate and what that means to those who may want to vote for you.
Okay, so I'm running as a write-in candidate because I'm a political independent, and so the stipulations for political independent to run is a lot more stringent than a person who would run in one of the major parties. So to run for this office, you only need 50 signatures if you're going to run for one of the major parties because you'll be filtered through their primary. but as a write-in or as an independent candidate, you need 1,600 signatures. So I've found it difficult even before the coronavirus situation to collect signatures in this district. So I have advocated for less rules when it comes to people who want to get involved in politics as an independent.
Thank you. For your next question, please describe the qualifications and experiences that make you the best candidate to represent the citizens of the 9th District in Congress.
I have a really unique management experience, and so I've been involved in different situations all around the country. I've managed in nightclubs in New Orleans, and I've managed in the woods and small communities in Northern California. So lately I'm known here in Cleveland for the public safety task force that I operate, mostly that operates at rallies and protests, where I perform a soft patrol and keep the protests from escalating to a level of violence or destruction. So I do that on the streets as the knight, but I also do that behind the scenes by just managing the people that I recognize from the protest scene, and I also use the police a lot as a resource to help me keep my community in order.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
for your third question, how do you think the United States is currently viewed on the world stage? Is this good or bad for the country?
I haven't been out of the country since I went on crusade in 2015, so I'm not sure what people out there do think of the country. I would imagine they might think that we're not quite a serious place as we used to be, since there are a lot of problems that are seemingly simple that we just can't seem to figure out how to get solved. It seems like some people in our elected positions allow those problems to continue, or they may even be complicit in the continuation of those problems.
Thank you. I have just one more question, if I might. Should the ICE detention facilities in the United States be subject to greater congressional oversight? Why or why not, in your opinion?
So if I was elected to Congress, I would probably spend some of my salary to go down and investigate what is going on at some of these detention facilities. Oh, are you saying ICE detention facilities like within our community?
Correct, within
our
area.
Because there was a question on there about the border. So
no, should it be subject to more congressional oversight? Because if you would win, then you would be our representative. Would you want, more congressional oversight? Why or why not, in terms of the ICE detention facilities?
As far as them passing policies and laws, I think that Congress could take a look at what's going on in these facilities. I would be happy to go and investigate them myself if I was an elected official, and then pass policies that were the most effective for that type of facility.
Thank you.
Sure. You will have your 1 minute for a closing statement.
Okay. Thank you. Once again, my name is Mackenzie Lewandowski, and you will need to write my name in on the ballot in order for me to get elected. Theoretically, that you guys should be able to elect me. I know it seems like a long shot, and it's a difficult thing to have to write someone in rather than just check a box for someone that seems to be an established candidate. So I will do my best to, like I said, protect you guys and protect our community, no matter what is happening as far as my professional position. I will continue to do it, but like I said, if I can only do so much from the streets, I can only do so much from my home office. If I'm not put in a position where I have some level of authority to challenge some of these people that are imposing these restrictions and these taking away your rights, then there's not much I can do from my home. So again, if you want to write me in, then I will challenge all the people that are doing you evil.
Mr. Lewandowski, we want to thank you, and we want to thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you for having me here again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back with the Lorain County Commissioners' races.
The Warriors to Work program makes it possible for wounded warriors and their families to build new lives together.
When my dad left, I was like this big, but now I'm like this big. My dad got a master's degree in human resources.
Thanks to Warriors to Work that my dad has a terrific job.
The Wounded Warrior Project helps him by, giving him another start.
Now that my dad's home, I get a lot more hugs.
I'm really proud of him.
Find out more about Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And now we are at the very important race for our citizens, as it's very local and it's something that affects us all within Lorain County, and that is the Lorain County Commissioner's race. There are two individuals running for this position. Unfortunately, we find that Commissioner Kokoski, who is the current serving commissioner, was unable to be with us today. But we do have her opponent, and her opponent is Council at Large Representative for North Ridgeville, Michelle Hung. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you.
And we'd like to begin with giving you the floor for an opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you to the Coalition for Hispanic and Latino Issues for hosting this event tonight. I'm a mom to a preteen daughter, 7th grader, and I'm teaching her how to be responsible with her money. She is learning how to earn money, save money, and balance her needs versus wants, and what her budget allows her to spend money on. It is important for her to learn that she needs to be responsible and not fall into reckless spending habits. Call me old-fashioned, but I believe our elected officials should be held to the same standard of accountability from the taxpayers. A vote for Hung is a vote for fiscal responsibility, someone that knows how to read and understand a budget, and someone that will bring 15 years of private sector experience. And I will bring that while representing the residents of Lorain County on the Board of Commissioners. Currently, I serve the 34,000 residents in North Ridgeville, serving as their Council at Large representative.
Thank you.
Thank you. For your first question, if elected to this position, do you plan on promoting any changes to existing taxes? Why or why not?
I have that here. So, the past 5 years, we've seen the general fund budget increase by nearly 40%. To solve the wasteful spending the commissioners backed themselves into, they imposed a sales tax increase that generates over $11 million annually. And they made their argument for raising the sales tax on the backs of our Lorain County Sheriff's Department and deputies, threatening to defund them. The voters overwhelmingly rejected the sales tax increase in 2016. The commissioners imposed it on us anyway. I would support putting a reduction of the sales tax on the ballot and letting the voters decide. I suspect these commissioners are in a bad habit of wasteful spending. I'm confident that we can reduce the spending without reducing services.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you the second question, and that is on the potential questions sheet. It's question number 8. Suicide prevention and accessible mental health treatment for all individuals in need are major health goals in Lorain County. Please share any ideas you may have which could impact the rising suicide rates within our schools and promote the well-being of our constituents, both youth and adults, as this problem has actually been exacerbated with the pandemic, with the coming of the pandemic.
Yes, I understand that. My husband is national sales manager for Sherwin-Williams Roof Coating Division, and he had to attend a funeral in Denver last month for one of his guys on his sales team who committed suicide. So it has affected many families. Speaking to the CARES Act money, $11.8 million from the CARES Act could be used to create and implement programs. That money could be used to help agencies to deal with mental health, for our Lorain County deputies that respond to these individuals that are calling for help. From what I understand, the county administrator denied the funding to the deputies when they requested it. These are the very things that the CARES Act was designed to help our community with. And these commissioners decided to spend money on magnets to tell people how to wash their hands. People are suffering out there, and we need to really, dial into helping these people in our community. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think this third question kind of follows that. What is one issue currently not on the radar of the commissioners that you would champion if elected on November 3rd?
I have the
That's
answer.
question 11?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have it here. have to find it. Oh, here it is. Question 11. I must have it marked wrong.
Well, she looks for her notes.
Okay,
I just want to give a quick note to the viewing audience that candidates are allowed to arrive 1 hour early to the candidates forum, and they can pick up a list of potential questions, which could be anywhere from 10 to 15 questions, of which we may ask for. So they're allowed to make notes, but they never know what questions are going to be asked.
Yes, and I made notes.
Okay.
Trying to read my chicken scratch.
That's more than fine with us. Okay.
So, you're asking about one issue currently not on the radar. I actually have a few.
Oh, good.
So, forget the first 4 years. I'm going to take you into the first 90 days. And this is what we can get done if we have a board that works together. First, we need to address the issues at 911. We've had 3 shutdowns in 10 months, system failures, lack of training for new hires, which we then fail to retain as employees, staffing shortfalls that cause senior dispatchers to work days and weeks without a day off, and failure to lead by inadequate management, which leads us to the lack of a human resource department to act as a buffer for the county employees between them and the county administrator. On the budget side, the past 5 years, we've seen the general fund budget increase, and Hung and Moore have talked to a lot of people since January. We just don't come out 2 months before an election. We've been talking to people since January, and these people are seeking us out. They want to talk to us. They want to tell us what's going on. These are dispatchers. These are loved ones. These are fire and police people and spouses of fire and police people, and they know what's going on. They're coming out, and they're talking to us, and they want somebody to bring them solutions to this problem. And we know these issues are very important to our residents, and we've been listening.
Thank you. Just one more quick question, if I may. Do you personally support, and this is question 9, do you personally support or oppose a 7-commissioner body as opposed to 3 for Lorain County? And please explain your position on that.
Well, I made notes, Mr. Farrar,
That's
but I know the
okay.
answer to this one.
That's okay. That'll be question 9.
So I do support the 7 districts being on the ballot. I supported it when it came up last time and was out helping with the petition drive, so that's not a secret. It will provide more local representation and gives the minority community an equal seat at the table. So I support putting it on the ballot and let the people decide.
Thank you.
Okay, you'll have your 1-minute closing statement.
I have that too. Somewhere. Here we go. So I think the choice in this election is very easy for the voters. They can choose a career politician who has had a 16-year track record of making promises to get elected and breaking them, or they can try someone new. People are tired of being told what to think and having elected officials ignore them year after year. I'm someone who will work together across party lines, as I have done while serving on City Council in North Ridgeville. I will give people the opportunity to have a voice on the Board of Commissioners, and I will challenge other board members on projects to ensure the residents are getting the best outcome and return on their dollars spent. I don't believe in imposing a sales tax that people don't want. And in North Ridgeville, we're a community that consistently lives within our budget. I believe I'm the best candidate, the qualified candidate, to be your voice on the Board of Commissioners. I will do everything in my power to ensure the county is going in the right direction. I think this year, more than ever, the voters can distinguish the self-serving career politicians from those who do this for the love and well-being of their community. I humbly ask for your vote if you choose to cast your early vote or on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back with the 2nd commissioner's race on the ballot for November 3rd.
Sergeant Michelle Garcia served meritoriously in Iraq and has the medals to prove it. Soon after leaving the Navy, Lieutenant Chris Scott found a job, a home, and started a family of his own. Corpsman Richard Stokely took the skills he learned in Vietnam and put them to good use as a paramedic. But soon after leaving the military, each of these veterans fell on hard times and faced homelessness. Even after Michelle lost all her savings, even after Chris wasn't able to pay his mortgage, and even after Richard battled alcoholism for years, they each reached out for help when they needed it most. A simple phone call put them in touch with a trained professional from the Department of Veterans Affairs. That call got Michelle a place to stay until she could afford one of her own, put Chris in touch with employment assistance, and found Richard a substance abuse program. These veterans are success stories not only for how they were able to help others while serving their country, but for how they were able to let others help them. If you know of or are a veteran in need, make the call.
Okay, welcome back. This next race is a treat because both of these individuals that are coming before you today have both served as the commissioner of Lorain County. Mr. Moore is a former commissioner, and Ms. Sharon Sweda is the current commissioner. So we welcome both of you, and we're going to begin with opening statements, and we will begin with Mr. Moore.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us. It's been a really bizarre campaign season. This is actually the first time that Commissioner Sweda and I have been together in the same room, actually having a discussion about the position. I was fortunate enough to be honored to be elected in 2000. Barely won by 1 vote per precinct out of 105,000 votes. My children, I have 3 girls. At that time, they were 5, 6, and 10 years old. I did 4 years. I was the first Republican since 1956. We haven't had 2 Republicans, I believe, since World War II. It's been a one-party system for quite some time, but I worked across the party aisles and we got things done. I did not seek re-election because I felt having 3 daughters is tough enough. So we decided, I decided not to run for re-election, get back in the private sector. And then seeing what's going on recently, I've decided to get back into the commissioner's race because I do know what's going on. We are being reached out by others that are employees of the county, and they're asking for our help. And so I'm excited. It's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to not only having 1, but 2 people that want to continue a public service career and do what's right for the county as a whole. And that's kind of the reason why I'm running. So now my girls are, naturally, it's 20 years later. They're 25, 26, and 30. I still can embarrass them a little bit, so I just got to stay, stay a little bit more humble with them. And I do have a grandson, Michael David, very proud of. He's 18 months old. And I'm getting excited. It's going to be a fun attempt. We got about 3 weeks before the election, and I can tell you right now, it's exciting. This is a fun position to be a part of.
Thank you. Ms. Sweda, your opening statement?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. I want to thank CHIPS. I think this is my 3rd debate here at CHIPS, and it's always one of my favorites. So thank you for hosting this evening, and thanks to everybody else who decided to come in and join in with us tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with our community and to speak with each of you tonight. I grew up in Lorain. I was born here in Lorain and attended Fairholme School, then Larkmore School, and my family moved to Amherst when I was in 4th or 5th grade. Most of my life has been spent as a entrepreneur or a business owner here in Lorain County, and one of the distinctions I hold as being a female-owned business owner in our community is that over the course of my business years, I have never closed a business, I have never laid off an employee, nor have I ever let an employee stand and wonder if they had a job. I was in the type of business that was subjected to 2 very severe recessions. And through those 2 recessions, the doors were always open and they always had a job. I take those leadership skills to my position as a commissioner. Now, you're hearing a lot of talk about career positions. Of the 3 candidates, I have the least experience or time in office, so I'm still the new commissioner. And I'm seeking your support so that I can continue the good work that I've started. We've done we've made great progress on creating jobs. You've had steady, stable leadership through the pandemic. We have had numerous advancements in most of our departments and in our growth, even through a 9-month pandemic. So I ask you to support me. I hope I can have your vote. You know that I've been with you and for you in this community, whether it's a Saturday morning bed building event, whether I'm mowing lawns on Pearl Avenue, whether I'm cleaning the muck out of the Black River with you on Saturdays. I live in this community and I love it with you. So I want to continue that work. I don't just show up when it's time to get a vote. So I thank you and thanks for having this tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Weeda, we'll start with you for the first question. What do you feel should be the priorities of the Lorain County Commissioners during the next 4 years?
Okay, during the next 4 years, I think, we've had a lot of folks asking us what our first priority is. And when you say the next 4 years, that kind of broadens it, because our first urgency is really to help our community to recover from this pandemic. Our county is fortunately fiscally very sound. So from the county seat, we're fine. And I heard the previous candidate mention that she would do things with CARES funds, but those CARES funds have to be committed by 12/31, so that opportunity would not exist. She'd have to find other methods of taking care of programs. But what I see as our greatest problems is our epidemic, our addiction epidemic, the failure to offer a one-stop crisis center for that. We have a food insecurity situation in Lorain County. It is about 13.2%. 47% of the folks treated at the Harvest Food Bank don't even receive assistance. So those would be my priorities.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, same question.
When I took office in 2000, I did more in 90 days than my opponent has done in 18 months that she has served. So what we propose, in order for what I think the priorities are, depends on who gets elected. If Michelle Hung and I are both elected, then I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We will be having a new administration. We will fire the administrator. We will also fire Clemens and Nelson and have our own in-house counsel. We will create an HR department so the employees at 911 will be able to go up and file their complaints without any political backlash. And these are serious issues that are going on. When I took office in 2000, the turnover was 26 people in 2 years at 911. They had no training. It was all political appointees. It's back to that again. They've had 8 turnovers this year already. I mean, there's some serious issues going on, which is management. And that's what I'm going to fix when I first take office, but I need 2 votes to do that. Last time, I could work together. This time, Michelle Hung and I both need to get elected to make the most effective change that is needed for Lorain County.
Thank you for your second question. And I did note that when I introduced both of you, I used Ms. Sweeta's full name and only used your last name. So I'm going to go ahead and rectify that with this question. And my question, Mr. David J. Moore, is Lorain County Transportation Services still seem to be falling short of meeting the needs of Lorain County citizens. If elected, what will you do to improve a situation disproportionately affecting the working poor of our community?
Again, it goes back to my last statement. Transportation had 13 routes in the 1970s. Now, if it's been 50 years, and even in 2000, that question was asked of me 20 years ago. It's a continued issue for the last 20 years. And if you look back, it's been an issue for 30 years. Now, there's programs that are going on in Sandusky, Ohio, and the problem is this. They keep asking this, trying to get money throughout the whole county. It continuously gets turned down because the whole county doesn't need it. But the cities of Lorain and Elyria do. So if we can focus on a regional system first, the county can actually facilitate these routes. And we can work with these communities to maybe help them pass levies within their communities and create a stronger transit instead of people waiting an hour and a half, 2 hours to get picked up. I mean, the system has failed, but it takes 2 of us to fix it.
Thank you. Ms. Sweeta, if you're elected for a full first term, what will you do to improve a situation that is disproportionately affecting the working poor of our community?
Well, many of you know I've already started that work. You may have seen the newspaper article when I took a snowy winter day last year and I hopped on our bus to find out exactly what that bus does, how many riders it has, what the stops were, and how convenient it was for our community. Now, I've heard my opponent twice say that at another event and this one that he would create a regional system, but unfortunately we have a regional system. Lorain County also has their own system. In the Lorain County system, what we need to do, what I've learned through working with MOVE Lorain County, I created an advisory panel for the transportation system that consists of community leaders just 6 months ago. I have been working with all of the nonprofits on transportation solutions. We will need something other than 2 axles and wheels to solve our transportation needs. It's going to require first mile, last mile facilitation. It's going to require additional electronic coordination, and I've been working on all of that.
Thank you. Okay, for your third question, starting with you, Ms. Sweda, what is one issue currently not on the radar of the commissioners that you would champion if reelected on November 3rd?
That's an interesting one because those who know me know that everything's on my radar. In fact, I get accused a lot of times of, that's not in our lane, but I go there anyway. I feel that when you are an elected official, you have 2 responsibilities that are unwritten. One is that your voice has a little louder ring to it. You need to use it wisely. And secondly, you have a responsibility to be present in the community. What I have discovered is that we have a broadband internet disproportionate availability. We have children who are going to be left behind if we don't solve that. We need to make internet service widely available throughout our county. I was in Wellington 2 weekends ago, and I couldn't get a hotspot at McDonald's, and I had to pull into the parking lot of LCC and go sit on their stoop to get a hotspot. We are not taking care of our community if we don't provide that service, both for adults, for children, and for businesses. That would be on my radar.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, same question. What is one issue currently not on the radar of the commissioners that you would champion if elected on November 3rd?
There are several issues that are really not on the radar that the public is aware of. I kind of went into that with 911. Basically, when I took office, I was the first commissioner in like 15 years. In fact, Greg White was served 25 years. And your job as a commissioner is you're the budget authority. I went down and I spoke with every director. And they said I was the first commissioner to ask them about their budget. Okay? And then what happened was the people felt like they weren't being listened to. And that's why you hear us talking about 911. It's a serious issue what's going on out there, folks. I mean, the people are just being abused. They're overworking them. And I can tell you right now, when I went in there, I fixed it within the first 90 days. It only took 90 days to fix it. You know what? Something simple as this. Hey, you need training and you got to have some experience. You know what? Selling steak fry tickets should not be a qualification to get a job at Lorain County. So with an HR department, we will hire qualified people, not political appointees. And you know what? It's going to change the attitude because the people that work at the county are going to feel like they're being appreciated. And I will stop. Thank you for the sign.
Thank you both. We're going to go to closing statements now. And because we have made up a little time, we're going to give you each a 2-minute closing statement. So we're going to begin with Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Like I said, it's been a fun campaign this year. It's very one of a kind, unique. We've hit over 30,000 homes going door to door, but not talking to people, which is sad. You know, I've really missed out on that. That's probably the most fun about campaigning, is going out and talking to everybody. So I do appreciate having this event tonight so people can at least see who their commissioners are. Most people don't realize the power that 3 people have in this county. I worked very well across the aisle. I pretty much irritated both leaders in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party because I felt I was doing a good enough job because I knew they were upset, but the people were happy. I created probably one of the best economic development programs that they've ever seen in 20 years. Some of these programs are still operational. We formed partnerships with colleges like with the Lorain Community College, like the GLIDE program that's still in existence today. But a lot of these programs are no longer around. So within the first 90 days, and I keep saying 90 days, I was there for 4 years, folks, but I want to show you what you can do in such a short time, you know, when you have that passion and that knowledge and that skill set. I created a nepotism policy. No blood relation. Domestic steel policy to save our steel industry. We had an organizational chart. Common sense didn't exist. Drug policy implementation, 911 training. The sheriff's department had a ledger card system. Now they have a CAD system. You know, you have to protect our deputies. We had 3 to 5 year budgets, which was never being done. And solid waste, we spent more money getting solid waste money back into those communities. But right now what my opponents are doing, they're using it for marketing. And you know what? A month out, you get your CARES Act little magnet saying to wash your hands. You get a little quarterly newspaper with their names on it. They're not using the money for the communities. They're using them for self-promotion. So Michelle and I are up against using our own money to run. And that's the hardest part about running in this type of an environment. And I'll stop. Thank you. Got to follow the sign.
Is that both of them? Okay, Ms. Suida, your closing statement?
Very good. Well, before I conclude tonight, thank you again for having us this evening. I appreciate the time that it takes to conduct a thorough and a fair and equitable candidate forum, and this is certainly that venue. What I think what I'd like to say to the public and the community first, my opponent seems to have a great 90 days, I don't know, but these are things, the things that he's referencing are things that have been long solved and long cured over the course of those 20 years that he hasn't been there.
15.
So, pardon?
15
years, all right. But things advance rapidly. We know that a computer's outdated in 18 months, so a lot of that stuff isn't really applicable to the Commission and the county now, and I think we have to look at the things that are relevant. First of all, in my 19 months, again, 9 of which was COVID management, we were able to create over 400 jobs with the introduction of the Carvana project over off of Middle Ridge there, that took 5 government jurisdictions working cooperatively together to bring that to fruition. In my first month, we merged the mental health and addiction boards. We went through a lawsuit over that, but we have successfully evolved with a united board that now has access to an additional $1 million in funding because they merged. We were the last county in Ohio that hadn't merged, and that goes back more than 15 years. I have been endorsed by LEA, AFL-CIO, UAW, Lorain County CAP Council, Lorain Fire, IBEW, NASW, and other local leaders. And I appreciate their endorsements. I think they know that I'm working with them and for them, and that I am the most skilled and capable person to lead our county into the next 4 years. I have had a successful business record. I have never closed a business. I have never left people unemployed, and I will do that for the county. Thank you.
Thank you both for your service, and good luck on Election Day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to come to our last race, and no matter how you vote on this last race, it will be that individual's first term as a Lorain County prosecutor. Join us in a minute.
We make Marines who overpower the desire to quit with the perseverance to prevail. Not for glory, but for honor. For a code that isn't written or spoken, but lived. It's what we do. It's who we are. It's the battle cry of our fighting spirit. Battles won. See all the battles Marines fight to win at marines.com.
Welcome back. We're now bringing to you the Lorain County Prosecutor's Race. I don't know if your voters are aware, but for the last 41 years, we've had 2 Lorain County prosecutors. The outgoing prosecutor, Dennis Will, served 16 years. And prior to that, Greg White served for 25 years. So it's kind of an excitingly nervous time, as regardless of who wins this election, Lorain County will have a brand new prosecutor with brand new ideas, with brand new spirit, and hopefully the changes will be beneficial to all of us. So we'd like to welcome here today Mr. Robert Gargis and J.D. Tomlinson, both candidates for Lorain County prosecutors. Welcome, and we're going to begin with an opening statement, and we're going to begin with Mr. Gargis.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of Lorain County, thank you for allowing us the privileges of running for office. I mean, all the veterans, all the people that came out, that sacrificed to give us the opportunity to be able to run here for Lorain County prosecutor. Both Mr. Tomlinson and myself received more votes in the primary than did the outgoing prosecutor, Mr. Will. If elected Lorain County prosecutor, I will be a law and order candidate. We will not tolerate crime in Lorain County, Ohio. We are going to punish criminals, violent criminals. I'm telling them right now, they might as well leave, because there's only going to be two places for you, the jail or prison. There's not going to be any plea bargaining. We're going to protect victims. We're going to ensure that the victims are protected. As Lorain County prosecutor, I will have many tasks besides criminal prosecution. One will be to serve on the Budget Commission and require accountability and transparency of all funding. You should be aware that there is about a $5.6 million budget as of last year. There are 100 people in the prosecutor's office, roughly 39 lawyers. It's our job, who you elect, to get the most out of every one of those individuals serving in our office. And an emphasis in the Gargis administration is going to be on protecting the victims' rights and to make sure that criminals are punished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gargis. Mr. Tomlinson, your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Chip, first of all, for having this. This is several times I've been to Chip debates. They're always interesting. Thank you for having me. Attorney Gargis, thank you for being such a gentleman throughout the course of this campaign. It's been a pleasure running with you.
And thank you, J.D.
Thank you. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is J.D. Tomlinson. I was born in Elyria in 1981. In 5th grade, I moved to Firelands High School, graduated there in 1999, and went off to study. I studied economics at Oberlin College, graduated Oberlin College in 2003, and went to law school. I attended law school at Case Western Reserve University, where I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun studying the law. And when I got done, I actually did a little work for Mayor Jack Bradley, who's actually in the room today. And Jack kind of got me hooked on criminal defense. And I got to watch how Jack worked, and it was intriguing to me. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to try cases. That's really what was my interest. So that's exactly what I did. And so for the last 13 years, I put my shingle out, as you say, and I've been practicing doing criminal defense work for 13 years. In the trenches, you win some, you lose some, but you always battle. And in doing so, I was able to kind of get an intimate look at the criminal justice system from the ground level. And by doing that, I understood the difficulties that prosecutors have to deal with, judges, police officers, and when you're in that ground level, you really truly understand every role that's in the criminal justice system. And in doing that, I was able to develop relationships. Relationships building has always been very important to me. It's important to treat everybody with respect. And I hope that I've done that over the last 13 years. And in doing that and creating relationships, I decided to run for county prosecutor, and that's what I did. And so 4 years ago, I decided there needed to be a change. And so I ran as a 35-year-old guy, walked a ton of doors, was unsuccessful, but I knew that I could possibly do it next time. And so I ran against the current, with the sitting county prosecutor, and was able to be successful in April of this year. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. And for your first question, Mr. Tomlinson, if elected county prosecutor, can you offer judges any ideas which could result in streamlining the docket for the Common Pleas Court?
I can. You know, there's Judge Christopher Rothgary runs. He's a Common Pleas Court judge, and he institutes a policy where all cases are set for trial on the first pretrial. So what happens in criminal procedures is that a criminal defendant is arraigned, and then shortly thereafter, depending on whether they're incarcerated or not, they have a first pretrial. And at that first pretrial is the first time kind of where defense counsel and the state of Ohio through the county prosecutor's office, where they're able to meet and discuss the matter. And he has a policy that you set the matter for trial on that day. And what that does is it creates an end game. A lot of people have a tendency to maybe drag their feet sometimes when it comes to criminal cases. Nobody's interested in the ultimate outcome. And so they tend to drag their feet a little bit, but setting that jury trial on that day, that first pretrial, does streamline it. And I'd like to maybe encourage that, or at least find out why the other judges choose not to.
Thank you. Mr. Gargis, the same question.
Yes, I think every case has to be looked at from the standpoint of achieving justice in that case. So in order to streamline what we're going to be demanding in that particular case, there must be involvement not only of the detectives or police officers that are involved, but also communications and discussion with the victims. And since I was a lawyer for 37 years, back in 1983 when I started, many of these defense standards that currently exist have been maintained. And we certainly have the ability to use technology, telephones, Zoom meetings, to try to pre-try cases without having the merry-go-round, as you would call it, around a table, and to be able to have the victims and the police officers have direct input to the trial court, prosecutors, and also my office. So streamlining would be my ability to accomplish that justice on behalf of the defendants. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for your next question, we're going to begin with Mr. Gargis. Judges in some major cities have recommended replacing the grand jury in all cases with preliminary hearings where witnesses testify under oath and are subject to cross-examination. What is your position on that issue?
Well, I think that's a terrible idea. The grand jury is an institution that has a long history under our common law, and the grand jury serves as a sword and a shield. So if someone is falsely accused, the grand jury has an independent ability to dive into facts that a prosecutor may not even appreciate. But it also has the ability to hone down on the elements of crime and indict the person. And an indictment means there's probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed and that the defendant has committed that crime, and that there should be a trial then to determine whether or not the individual is guilty. So I would not in any way, shape, or form recommend the removal of the grand jury. I think that would be a grievous mistake under our jurisprudence.
Thank you. Mr. Tomlinson, same question.
Yes, I happen to agree with Attorney Gargis on this particular matter. Well, first of all, defendants do have the right to preliminary hearings. That usually occurs at municipal courts because cases, felonies typically arise at municipal courts, and a defendant does have the right to a preliminary hearing. Oftentimes they waive that right, but they do have the right for a preliminary hearing. So preliminary hearings exist. But I think what Attorney Gargis I can concur with is it would jam up the system, and it would be almost impossible to kind of administer justice, I think, effectively. Also, I think when you called it a shield, I think you're correct, Attorney Gargis. I mean, if those facts are presented to a grand jury secretively and an individual is not indicted, they do not have to deal with the stain of having that particular procedure be made public. And in doing so, they would kind of avoid any undue bias.
Thank you.
Okay, for your next question, starting with you, Mr. Tomlinson. It has been estimated that 85 to 90% of cases in state and federal court are plea bargained. What is your position on plea bargaining cases?
Plea bargaining is absolutely a necessary aspect of the criminal justice system. Again, it comes down to judicial economy. It would be very difficult. It would clog the system up if there was no plea bargaining. And I want to remind the audience is that plea bargaining, when it occurs, it is done consensually between the state of Ohio and criminal defendants. So this is the situation where a negotiation has occurred. And as life goes, life is a negotiation. And one side typically doesn't want to lose all or win all. So I think in terms of defendants, it can be extremely beneficial to them in some or most cases. So I believe that plea bargaining is important. It's important to the system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gargas, you kind of mentioned this in your opening statement. What is your position on plea bargaining?
Sure. Plea bargaining has a role. However, its role for expediency, for the government to move its cases along, is not a good enough excuse to minimize what the defendant is going to receive by way of restitution, received by way of protection. I think that when you're involved in plea bargaining, you have to have the police at your side, and you have to have the victim at your side. And it's very important that whatever outcome is achieved, that the victim is satisfied and that the police are satisfied. And in a Gargas administration, this is exactly what we would be working for with respect to any plea bargains. You know, and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen because the police are okay with it and that the defendant is on board. It's very important. I look at criminal prosecution as being the representative of the state, but also to accomplish justice for that defendant. I mean, for that victim, and the punishment for the defendant. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have one final question, and we're going to begin with Mr. Gargas. Lorain County has been trying to deal with an opioid epidemic for the past few years. Reports indicate that this epidemic has only been exacerbated during this pandemic. Under what conditions would you, as Lorain County prosecutor, support treatment over criminal prosecution when it comes to drug user and nonviolent drug-related cases coming into your office?
You know, thank you for that question. I think the operative word is nonviolent offender. So every individual that is going to be reviewed who comes to us and asks for intervention, you know, whether it might be from the mental court, whether it might be for the veterans court, or whether it might be for the addiction court, we will allow, in nonviolent cases, an opportunity for someone to rehabilitate themselves. But as part of that intervention process, you know, there's going to be some stringent hoops that the defendant must jump through. And if there are victims involved in the case, the victims are going to have some say. So, for instance, if I've got a abused woman who, you know, loves the man and says, you know, he's an alcoholic, he's got these drug problems, you know, she's going to be able to help set the standards for what exactly the therapy or treatment must be. And, you know, we can, instead of having it just set down for 30 days, we can make it more intensive for him to have to account for his behaviors. And I think the probation department is capable of doing that, and it also would be something that my office would monitor after the conviction.
Thank you.
Or intervention.
Thank you. Mrs. Tomlinson, under what conditions would you support treatment over criminal prosecution when it comes to drug user and nonviolent drug-related cases coming into your office?
In almost every instance, I distinguish. I see the drug epidemic as more of a public health issue. Now, I see drug users. I see those who sell drugs to support their habit. And I see a third group. This third group is those who sell drugs for greed, profit, entirely. This is the segment that I wouldn't be kind to. This is the segment that needs to be punished harshly. However, with those that are involved with the opioid crisis that are users, and those even that maybe traffic small amounts to use, I would be much more sympathetic towards that type of situation.
Thank you.
Okay, we will have our closing statements. Mr. Tomlinson, we'll start with you for your 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, and thank you again for having me. I think my endorsements are what separate me in this race. With all due respect to Attorney Gargas, I have a number of them, and I was able to gain those endorsements by relationship building. And I think that's one thing that I like to really stress, is that life is about relationships and the relationships that you develop with other people. Those endorsements have included police groups and organizations, fire organizations, sheriffs, deputies, who I believe hadn't endorsed a candidate in maybe 13 to 15 years, especially a candidate running against an incumbent. I was able to get many labor organizations, which are too numerous to kind of name, and Chronicle Telegram has recently endorsed me, and so has Sheriff Phil Stamidi. So I think the endorsements kind of speak volumes. Also, I want to go after community policing. It's the future. Every time I speak publicly, I talk about it. And what do I mean by that? I mean further interaction between law enforcement and at-risk communities. There's a trust issue that is apparent in our society right now. We can reduce that and increase trust between law enforcement and these communities by interacting more. And as county prosecutor, I really am interested in that particular program.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both.
Mr. Gargas, his closing statement.
Closing statement.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank the CHIP organization for providing us this forum. You know, ladies and gentlemen of Lorain County, what distinguishes me from Mr. Tomlinson is my experience. I have 37 years worth of experience in both civil and criminal cases. I have litigated in federal and state courts. I'm actually involved in bringing an action against Mike DeWine to relieve us of these unreasonable and unconstitutional COVID orders. The only endorsement that I need is a vote of the people. I think that over those 37 years, I've built many relationships, and I've accomplished, and go to my website and you can read all about it, robertgargas.com. And I encourage everyone to go there. I look forward to having an opportunity to serve as your prosecutor and to get justice for victims. And I also believe that although Mr. Tomlinson is well qualified, that I'm better qualified based upon my experience. So I humbly ask you all for a vote in my favor. Thank you.
Thank you both. I mean, you've enlightened us. You've given us, I think, a lot of what's inside, and we'd like to now bring our president, Juanita Sanquisa, up to thank you personally and to thank all of the candidates who are able to join us this evening.
Thank you both.
You're very welcome.
And of course, everyone here tonight. Too bad we couldn't have it more public, but the audience will see us on TV 20. What is the LCC channel, Mike?
LCC, I can't, I thought
19.
That's right.
19. I would like to conclude tonight's candidates night. Of course, I'd like to thank Mike Fidel and Alicia Pardon as our moderators. Joe Bach, as always here, gosh, for I don't know how many years, as our TV person there. Dr. Graham, our CEO superintendent. Patrick Coleman, our new principal for Lorain High School. Jeff Hawks, the Executive Director of Operation for the Custodial and Cleaning Services here tonight. Our timekeeper, Pablo Senquis, and I believe we had a greeter, Joyce Early, out there helping us out tonight. Everyone be safe. You know, COVID's going to be around, who knows for how long. This pandemic, we're hoping to end it soon, but be safe and make sure you vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for ACES for helping us out to make sure everything stays sanitized.
Good. Thank you.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.